feature in the section of Zoom, and please note who the question is for. All right. For anybody who doesn't know what Pechakucha presentations are, they are a Japanese form of storytelling where the presenter will talk through 20 slides with 20 seconds each. Specifically, we'll hear from Toby for 20 minutes with a 15-minute Q&A. Andrew, Chloe, and myself will help curate questions. Amanda, Terrell, Osmond will each have 7 minutes to present, and then 8 minutes for Q&A. And then Tayler will wrap up with 20 minutes presentation, about 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A. All right, and we'll do our quick closing. So we should be out of here in about 2 hours. Okay, a little bit about Where Are the Black Designers. We exist to heal, support, amplify, and make space for the entire spectrum of Black creativity, while also decolonizing design through education, wellness resources, events, partnerships, and collaborations. Take your mind back a little bit to 2020 when the world completely changed. The pandemic hit, George Floyd was murdered, and we were all stuck at home, really anxious, trying to make sense of what was happening. It was a moment that made the world stop and made us reflect about how much time and energy we have to pay attention to the ongoing oppression that Black communities face every day. Y'all probably noticed a lot of these individuals on Instagram were throwing out these Black squares. And frustrated with the lack of change, Mitzi, a junior designer who's actually in the chat, helped co-found this organization with a trusted friend and ally from school named Garrett, who actually lives like 10, 15 minutes away from me in Park Slope, Brooklyn. And they helped stage a protest of their own, a virtual conference. Who else in the chat? Can anybody put in the chat who was there in the virtual conference of 2020? And what we did was a poster challenge before the virtual conference. And we didn't expect hundreds of submissions, which helped raise awareness for this idea of Where the Black Designers, helping showcase creativity in the spectrum of Black creativity. And the conference was awesome. It was a 6-hour event. If anybody has the interest, the full recording is up on YouTube. And hosted a dialogue from Black design academics, professionals, allies, as we discussed the research in decolonizing the design space and making a true reflection of society. Mitzi and Garrett expected a really small attendance to show up, but around 16,000 people at once were in the Slack and on YouTube at once. And we ended up opening up a free Slack space for this audience, which at the time around 4,000 people immediately joined, and since has grown thousands and thousands more. Because of this overwhelming reaction, we kind of realized this need for permanence and the need to continue the conversation. So curated a team to help that happen. And that included Roshana, Katie, Terrell, a variety of other Where Are the Black Designers administrators. And they chose members who are already visibly doing the work, those who are trying to manage chaos, ensure that there's a safe space for everyone. And one of them is me, of course, and some of the other amazing people in the team. So if anybody is able to give a shout out to Terrell and Mitzi and Garrett, all of them in the chat, please thank them for starting this up. All right, fast forward 3 years to now. We're now an official nonprofit. Specifically, we're a nonprofit design advocacy organization. And the backbone to our platform is our digital Slack community, which is now around 10,000 people, made up of Black designers, creatives, the whole spectrum of Black creativity, as well as some active allies who are keen to learn and nurture Black talent. Although Where the Black Designers initially focus on democratizing the design industry, we always had the intentional international footprint. So that means London. So London is in the house, extending across the diaspora in Europe, Africa, and other parts of the world. And this event is truly an amazing example of that. We have speakers from Europe, the US, Brazil, and Africa. And we've been fortunate to partner up with various brands, agencies, and companies that support our mission. And our first and foremost focus right now is activating a long-term partnership with ustwo. Thank you, ustwo, for being part of this. And in a time where DEI and B seems to be going backwards, unfortunately, these partnerships are crucial to the survival of Where the Black Designers and contributing the real change that we want to see in the industry. And specifically what we're doing with the partnership is we're working to create visibility and democratize the design industry and create impact. So we're offering with ustwo free insights, resources, cultural programming. At the end of year one, so early 2024, we're thinking about releasing an impact report to share findings of what worked, what hasn't worked, why it's important to be transparent and continue to build the momentum. And we need your help with this. So as this event goes on, please give feedback in the chat, and then also give us feedback afterwards in our Slack community. Any feedback, any stories, new connections, big, small, medium things that have happened because of this partnership are really, really helpful. All right, is everyone excited?
Super excited.
All right, so let's start with our first presenter. Toby, take it away.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I just want to say before I start how honored I feel to be a part of this, just hearing the setup of what has gone into creating Where Are the Black Designers and what it's become to be. I feel that you curate such incredible, safe but powerful spaces, and I don't take it for granted that you've enabled me to come into something that feels really special and really powerful. So I just wanted to say thank you and acknowledge all the incredible work that it looks like has gone in to create this community, but also the partnerships as well. So I cannot wait to talk to you all today about overcoming imposter syndrome. And it's quite strange because now I'm sharing my screen. I can't actually see you all, but please fill the chat with lots of comments, conversations, and there will definitely be plenty of time for Q&A before. But I thought it makes sense to obviously start by introducing myself. So I am a mum of two incredible, but keeping me on my toes, children who are 5 and 3 years old. I am also the founder of an organization or an online platform called My Bump Pay, which is really there to help women smash the glass ceiling with a baby on the way and beyond. I am incredibly passionate about people who want to enter the world of parenting to be able to do that, but still grow their careers very much at the same time. And that's one area that I'm really passionate about, but that really spreads into the whole ethos of me, which is really about no matter your background, your circumstances, or who you are, you should still be able to thrive in society and in the workplace. So that's something that I hold very dear to me. And that platform is called My Bump Pay. And when I say the next thing, it still blows my mind. From that platform, I was given the privilege and an honor to write a book called The Blend, which is very much on the topic of how to successfully manage your career and a family. I also had the honor of speaking at engagements and events just like this. I love to be able to connect with people, with humans, because behind the stories that we all see in our world and our day-to-day are real people. So it's one of the things that I love to do. So thank you for allowing me to be here today. And I work in the world of media, and I purposely put that point last because it's really central to the theme of imposter syndrome that I'm going to talk to you about today. So I guess stumbled into this job that I have now. I was looking for something culturally quite different. I was working in the world of financial services for many years, always in growth and commercial-led roles. But I was looking for something different. And an opportunity came up to work in the world of media. And I thought, why not? I will give it a go. I have never worked in a media agency, and I just thought, well, media is all around us, newspapers, cinemas, TV, adverts, like, I get it, right? And I was actually asked at my interview, how much are you willing to learn about the world of media? And I said, yeah, sure, like, it sounds really easy. And they're like, yeah, it's not hard at all. But as soon as I stepped in, I realized that this was not going to be easy. And now for context, I was hired into a relatively senior role. I have the honor, I should have actually explained what my role is, but I head up growth for the agency that I work at, which is called OMD UK, which sits as part of the Omnicom family. And within that role, I head up business development, organic growth, marketing, and PR for an agency of 450 people. And with that responsibility also comes serving on the board and being on the executive senior leadership team. And so when I think about my time and my journey and my career to this particular point, this question of, am I good enough, seems to have followed me in the just over 2 years that I have been here. And the reason why that question seems to have followed me is I think of it as these dots, in the sense that I came from a background that was not from the world of media. I am also a woman who identifies as Black. I am a Black woman. And within the particular layer of the business, there wasn't anybody that looked like me. I was also stepping into a role where my predecessor, who had done the role, had been in this particular agency for over 30 years. And everyone else around me at that senior level had been doing this job or working in the industry of media, it seemed, from birth. And here I was, a Black woman who was not from the world of media, who was being given this very, very senior role with lots of big responsibilities. And immediately I felt different. I felt like I wore my difference. Not only did I not come from their industry discipline, I also didn't look like many people at that particular level. And therefore, that question of, am I good enough, plagued me. And very quickly, I was given a very big responsibility to run one of the largest or meaningful pitches that the business had had, a client of which they had had for almost 40 years. And pretty much in week 2, they said to me, right, Toby, we want you to run this pitch. And so I ran this pitch and we won said pitch, which was incredible. And after that, we had the biggest private sector pitch in our sphere, and we won that pitch, and I led that. And then we had another pitch and we won that pitch. So there are incredible stories of success, shall I say. But this feeling of, am I good enough, constantly plagued me, to the point that I started to question if I could even do the role, full stop. All of those successes, which were really clear and really evident to everybody else, I really struggled to see for myself. And I had to really do a lot of work. And I remember this very, 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 very clearly. I got an email, I think I was scrolling on LinkedIn, because I just think LinkedIn is really fascinating, people's different points and opinions. But I was scrolling on LinkedIn and I saw the offer of mentoring. And I thought, oh my goodness, I shouldn't really let other people see that I really feel like I need a mentor or someone else to talk to outside of my organization, because I've been hired into the senior, very, very senior role, but I'm feeling like I can't do it, or I'm feeling like I'm struggling, or I'm asking that question of myself, am I therefore good enough? And so I'm going to apply for this mentoring scheme in secret. As the world would have it, one of the mentors actually happened to be a professional coach. So our relationship continued, and I was so desperate that I actually paid for additional coaching sessions. And through these coaching sessions, I started to understand that actually the reason why I was able to be so successful in this role and win pitch after pitch after pitch after pitch, despite not coming from a media background, was actually because of this point of difference, because I thought so differently, because I brought such freshness, such new perspective, because actually I didn't understand a lot of the terminology. I was really forcing us to explain a lot of the things that we were trying to sell to prospective clients in really plain, straightforward English. And actually, that's what our clients were seeking for. They were looking for solutions that they really understood. Right, okay, that's something that's going to work for my business, and also just a human partner to work with. And my point of difference, or in many ways, my point of understanding, forced me to go down that human route of what are we actually really trying to say here. And so that point of difference and that uniqueness actually was my superpower, and actually really drove my success. So in many, many ways, that story or that experience of imposter syndrome actually allowed me to succeed. And so I want to come on and talk about tactics to help overcome imposter syndrome. And these are some of the tactics that I found really, really helpful. And ironically, in all the work that I do with My Bump Pay, I am constantly challenging people to, and supporting people and helping people to be more confident and actually overcome instances like imposter syndrome, because lots of women, as they come back into the workplace after maternity leave, also do struggle with imposter syndrome. So ironically, as I was championing others to do this, I was facing and going on my own journey. And so these are some of the things that I unpacked and I discovered that really helped me and have helped other people that I have worked with, that I want to share with you today. The first thing that's really important to me when it comes to overcoming imposter syndrome is celebrating your wins. And I found this quote, and I can't remember where I found this quote from, but I really think it encapsulates this really, really well. So growth is slow, and sometimes it's really hard to see what's actually happening when we're in the thick of everything, but it is happening. Small achievable goals and making them and marking them help us to see that we are actually gaining tremendous momentum and experience. And as we gain and build these experiences, we actually grow in confidence. And I couldn't honestly agree with that more. As I was winning pitch to pitch to pitch, actually I was becoming better and better and better and better. Sadly, at that particular point, I couldn't see that, and I had to do a lot of work on myself to kind of get to that realization that actually things were getting better. So what I have learned from that it's absolutely imperative to celebrate your wins on the journey, document those wins, share those wins with anyone that you feel comfortable doing so, because also they will help you in terms of accountability to actually recall those moments where you've done something incredible. And something incredible doesn't have to be like a huge, big moment. It can sometimes be a small step, like, you know, going into that conversation and advocating for yourself, or advocating for someone else, for example, or selling in a piece of work, or getting your next gig and on your dream project, or working with your dream partner on a dream project. There are so many wins that you can celebrate on your journey. And I really encourage you to document them, and don't do what I often do, in the sense of document them and kind of keep them in a corner. I would keep them massively visible and somewhere where you can see them on a daily basis, ideally, and just remind yourself of those wins. And I'm a really big advocate of actually sharing your win story to kind of basically create a statement about yourself to build your confidence, because that's ultimately what we're talking about, is questioning that confidence in certain scenarios and maybe feeling that you're going to get caught out as somebody who is maybe fake or an imposter. So one of the exercises that I absolutely love to do with people, and I often do it on myself, is remind myself of who I am and what I have accomplished and why I'm actually really worthy of attaining that particular win or having that particular skill set. So I have this kind of confidence builder paragraph that I build often and repeat to myself. So I tell myself like who I am, so describing maybe my vocation or professions, or I could say I'm a commercial growth professional, for example, who then specializes, and then you talk about your specialism. So you could, you know, specialize in a particular area of design or kind of visual branding, or for me, I specialize at the moment in selling the services of media agencies to really large organizations who are looking to build their brand and media tactics. And then talk about who you've worked for. So you could talk about the different projects or clients or brands that you've worked for, or possibly stakeholders, and what you have therefore helped to achieve with your work and what successes you have had off the back of that. And you can create your power statement ultimately. And I have this statement and I repeat it to myself. Like I promise you, I genuinely do repeat it to myself when I'm going into these situations where I'm starting to question who I am and my confidence and my place, I guess, in that particular room or virtual room. I repeat it to myself over and over and over and over and over again. And it is so incredibly powerful. I've also left this kind of second paragraph, which is massively optional depending on your situation in life. But often, because I talk to a lot of women who or parents who have taken some time out for work, that can also sometimes make people question their standing or their confidence or their skill set. So if anyone here is a parent or potentially is taking any break in their careers to do anything, I think thinking about how that break has actually been really beneficial to your career and your skill set is also really powerful to build into your confidence statement. So I think building confidence and repeating these statements and phrases over to yourself over and over again is a really powerful thing to do. And the second tip I want to talk about is actually reframing imposter syndrome. Because if you feel like an imposter, ironically, you are anything but, because behind every single individual who actually feels like they are an imposter is, I bet you, for every single person on this call, is an undisputable list of things and accomplishments or abilities or skill set or amazing creative work that sits behind you that actually counteracts the whole idea of being an imposter. And actually, sometimes we feel that we are imposters, or sometimes we have that question, am I good enough? Because we're actually stepping into brand new territory. And when we're actually stepping into brand new territory, so maybe it's a new job, maybe it's a new client, maybe it's a new project, maybe it's learning a new skill set, actually doing something new is all about growth. It's all about stepping forward, and doing something new actually should be celebrated rather than questioned. So when we do something new, rather than asking ourselves, am I good enough? We should be celebrating the fact that we're stepping into something new, and actually we've got the skill set that is that base level that has allowed us to take that new step. And of course, with everything new, there is always going to be a learning curve. So I'm a really big advocate of reframing imposter syndrome and actually understanding that stepping into something new isn't a bad thing. It's actually an incredible marker of growth. And then the third thing is surround yourself with champions and cheerleaders. And so I've put a picture of my nuclear family here because they are my cheerleaders. They are my champions. And they are the people who, if I say that I'm doing X, Y, Z, they're like, yes, go for it. Like, this is so incredible. We're cheering you on. But everybody's champions and cheerleaders are really different. In the story that I described at the beginning, I had to take some rather drastic actions in terms of almost buying a mentor and buying coaching sessions for somebody to externally tell me, who wasn't myself, actually look at all of those achievements. Nobody else achieved those things but you. So therefore, those thoughts in your minds or those questions that you're battling with of, am I good enough? In many senses of the word are actually a fallacy. So often it can be really hard to pull ourselves out of that questioning cycle that can go on and on and on. So I massively encourage, surround yourself with champions, surround yourself with cheerleaders. It feels, and I get this sense that this community that you've kind of created, you could start to be that through each other. So whether it's kind of sharing your list of achievements with each other or in safe spaces or smaller breakout groups, and whenever you sense that someone else is maybe going through a bit of a difficult time with that question of, am I good enough? You could resurface some of the amazing work that they've done or some of the amazing accomplishments, or maybe even how they've helped you on your particular journey. So I'm a very, very big advocate of kind of surrounding yourself with extra special people. And then lastly, it can feel counterintuitive, but I really strongly recommend to keep going regardless of how confident you feel. I think this speaks to that sense of actually so many people question themselves of whether they're good enough. Male, female, Black, not Black, Hispanic, so many people will always constantly ask themselves, are they good enough? And therefore, if we actually wait till we're 100% confident to do something, we will never actually start anything or finish anything. the lack of confidence doesn't actually mean that we're not good enough to do the task. It just means that perhaps we're stepping into something new. And this thought that really stays with me, or this concept that really stays with me, is if anyone knows the story, I guess, or the stories that Michelle Obama often tells, she's somebody that's spoken quite publicly about her journey with imposter syndrome. And I think, oh my goodness, if the first lady or the former first lady of one of the most powerful nations in the world can often struggle or grapple with this concept or this question of, am I good enough? Then actually, surely, I think every single one of us on our journeys and our lives and our careers, actually at some stage will ask ourselves that question. And therefore, nobody is probably truly 100% confident. So if nobody's truly 100% confident, then it means that you can still carry on and continue to do the things that you want to or would love to pursue. So I think it's not holding that question of, am I good enough, or self-doubt, or feeling like you're going to get caught out to stop you from starting. Start, go on that journey, find cheerleaders, remind yourself of your wins, and surely you will hopefully eventually kind of get to that place where you're building your confidence and you're questioning yourself less and less and less. So that is the end of my presentation in terms of overcoming imposter syndrome. I would love to take any questions. I'll stop sharing, and very happy to take any questions from that.
Thank you, Toby. All right, everyone give it up for Toby in the chat. We've got a few questions.
Yeah. Okay.
One person asked, if you're comfortable, can you describe the time in which you felt at your lowest point with imposter syndrome and how you addressed it?
Yeah, so very much, I think that story that I kind of told at the beginning of stepping into a brand new role, new industry, feeling in many ways like the only Black person at a particular layer. And so I would therefore, and it's sometimes silly that you feel like you have to do this, but I would question myself, like, am I really good enough? Have they just brought me in because I'm a person of color and they need to kind of tick that box? And can I actually do this job? When actually, in reality, like, you know, if I couldn't do the job, it's a commercial business. They wouldn't be paying me to sit here and to not be able to do that job. So I think for me, lots of my, I guess, questioning, am I good enough, came from just being visibly different, but also from a skill set point being different. And so I got to the point where emotionally I felt very drained, felt very tired, felt very exhausted. And I was like, I guess my motivation was conflicted, because I really wanted to do a good job, but I was also struggling. And the way that I solved it really was actually paying for professional coaching, somebody to help me get me out of this rut.
Let's stay on that for a second. How did you find your professional coach, and what are they like? How do you discover that they were the right match for you?
So I had gone on this mentoring journey. So I paid to basically get on this mentoring scheme where you get 4 different mentors from all walks of life within the industry. So for one of those sessions, actually, I had a really good session where she didn't even know me, but she said, I feel like the person who came into this job is not the person who is sitting in front of me today. I feel like for whatever reason, your confidence has been massively knocked. And I felt like she got me without really knowing me. So quite soon after, I had a bit of a moment of crisis of confidence, and I just emailed her like a panic one night. I was like, hi, Rachel, I know that you're a coach. Do you do paid sessions? And she said, yes. And I transferred that money straight away. And I think we had a conversation the next day.
What have been some of the most useful things to ask your professional coach?
So she has a very different style of working. So she asks me all the questions and she doesn't say very much, and she allows me to talk. So I'd say that the eureka or the aha moment was probably quite an emotional one. I think she was trying to really stress test what my motivations were, or where my challenges were coming from. And the eureka moment, it was that unlock that actually I don't need to be anybody else. They have hired me and I'm doing my job brilliantly because I am me. I don't need to pretend to be somebody that's got 30 years experience in media. That actually my superpower is genuinely just being me and actually being really different. And that's probably what is so refreshing. And so I shouldn't be afraid to be myself. And as soon as I got that, my goodness, I just felt like it took a while, but I felt like it was a 180. Like I felt like I could speak up in meetings. I felt like I can contribute a point of view. I felt like I basically had no boundaries anyway, in a professional sense, shall I say.
Do you by any chance remember what the mentor program was called? Some people are asking.
Yes, I do. It's very specific to the UK, but it's WACL, which is basically Women in Advertising, Communications and Leadership. So I think they do it about twice a year, and it's roughly about £100, and you get 4 sessions with 4 senior women in the advertising and communication space. But it's basically open to anyone. You could be a founder, you could be working in an agency, as long as I think you're working in that creative and communication space.
Great, awesome. I'm curious, who are some other Black creatives that you'd like to give a shout out to that are like killing it in the game right now?
Oh, I really love I really love Vanessa Kingori. Might sound very obvious, who is I can't remember her exact title, but I think she's the chief publishing officer of Condé Nast. One, she has so much poise and she just seems unruffled, whatever's going on. She's so professional, but also I think she's brought into Vogue, like her and Edward are clearly a dream team. I think she's brought into Vogue diversity in the most beautiful and richest form, but diversity that sells, because it's been the season of Vogue that has been one of the most accessible and one of the most profitable for that business. So it's the proof case that diversity is really beautiful, but also commercially can pay back.
Incredible. Thank you.
Oh, Vanessa Kingori, sorry.
Yep. From Tanya, they ask, what if you don't have a sufficient enough proof, aka insufficient documentation to show that you're good enough to counter imposter syndrome? What do you recommend for individuals who are in that state?
I think it's a really good and interesting question. There's an exercise that I do every year called Compass, or it's called a year in Compass. And what it forces you to do is actually go through either your calendars or your photos, because I think often we live life so fast, but actually we capture a lot of life on our phones. And I don't think we ever sit down and slow down to actually realize the different things that are actually meaningful things to us. So it could be small things like you helped someone with something, or on that day you had that meeting and it's been in your calendar and you spoke up and you were able to get your point of view across. And I think you'll surprise yourself actually as you go through your calendar for the year, and if you go through your photos for the year, actually you've got more points to celebrate than you probably actually thought that you had.
Awesome. Next up, oh man, the questions are just coming in. We've got 5 more minutes. I think we have plenty of time. We've got at least 3 more questions.
Sure.
How important is it to have a mentor that represents your identity, whether you're Black, woman, whatever your sexual orientation is, et cetera, et cetera? And also, what about age? Does it matter if they're younger than you, older you, et cetera, et cetera? And as a follow-up to that, what's your advice on how to find somebody who matches your cultural identity and your identity in general?
Yeah, so I used to think it was really important to have like a mentor that had kind of culturally identified with me, or maybe was a Black woman, but it can be hard, to be quite frank. And actually, I've learned that through the scheme, because that was one of the prerequisites that I actually put on my form, and nobody that I was paired with was a Black woman, but I actually started to understand there are things that they understood through their own personal unique stories and journeys actually that were really additive to me, irrespective of their backgrounds and walks of life. And actually I was learning so much from kind of getting an insight into their world. What I did actually supplement that with, I would say, was therapy, and just therapy in general. And actually the therapist that I was paired with was actually a Black woman, and I could see, again, in my therapy session, she didn't say much, but I could see the empathy in her eyes. I could see the nods, and those nods were perhaps a bit more enthusiastic on certain points. So I do think it's a different blend and mix of people that you can curate. And my husband has this wonderful phrase that sometimes you can't always access mentors in terms of people, but books and stories sometimes can really act as wonderful mentors. And I've recently done a co-exchange with somebody who is a man in the business that I work with. And my goodness, where my eyes opened from being kind of co-exchange mentors from somebody who's like very, very opposite to me. So I think actually mentorship, I think it's really actually important to curate mentorship from different people with different experiences. But yes, there is, I think, a benefit from finding people that you can speak to that you feel might understand you.
Speaking about books, do you have any specific books that you've read recently that you highly recommend?
Yes, I mean, I wrote one, but not necessarily that book. But there's one book that I absolutely love, and I keep reading it over and over again. There's two. One is called, and I speak about this one a lot, it's called Unapologetically Ambitious by Cheryl Archambault. And she was one of the first, I think, CEOs, Black female CEOs in tech world, full stop. But she was very intentional from the beginning that she wanted to be CEO. And she almost worked backwards from looking at various different CEOs and the different skills and experiences that they had. She worked backwards to actually find out what she needed to do and her journey. So her book is fascinating. So love that book. And there's another book that I'm reading at the moment called Mastery, and it's by George Leonard. It's quite an old one, but it talks about actually the power and consistency in this world of virality where things go viral and we want a career path that kind of looks like this, or a road to success that looks like this. It actually talks about doing steps consistently and finding the love in the consistency of your journey. And actually that is the true key to your success.
I love it. I want to start a podcast with you. I want to just like ask you like a bajillion questions.
That's so kind. I love podcasts, by the way, as well.
Well, you're on one recently. You've been on a few episodes.
Yeah, I've done a few.
I'll share that in the chat in case anybody wants to hear a little bit more from you. Where can people find you and listen to you more and all of that? Do you want to give a shout out to any of your socials?
Yeah, so my socials are, I'm going to change this name eventually because it's quite hard to say. My bump, as in baby bump, and then pay, then give me the money pay, and it's all one word. So my bump pay on Instagram is probably the best way to find me. And then LinkedIn is just my name as well. So yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn.
Incredible. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Everyone, please give it up for Toby. That was incredible. All right. Next up, we've got our first Pechakucha presentation by Amanda. Welcome, Amanda.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Let me just start sharing the screen. It has the timer, so I have to start it immediately. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Amanda Lobos. I'm a freelance illustrator and designer. I'm 24 years old, and I live in Espírito Santo, Brazil. I've been working since I was around 17, and I started taking it more seriously like 3 years ago. I first met We Are the Black Designers back in 2020 through a portfolio call and ended up being part of the collaboration with Bagu, I don't know how to say it. And it's crazy how everything has changed since then and how much I've grown with my work and clients. And even crazier, realizing I developed most of my portfolio during the pandemic. Wait, I don't think the timer is not working. Wait. Oh, now it worked. I'm constantly surrounded by my talented Black artist friends, and it sparked my desire to talk about the happiness and color of being everything you could possibly be in Brazil. And I'm blessed with ultra supportive family and friends, and it pushes me to talk about our experiences. These are illustrations I made from one of our weekends together, and was part of a huge project I made for Adobe. And I can never say being Black and Brazilian is an universal experience, but in this series of 500 illustrations I did for Adobe Stock back in 21 to expand their Latin representation, I tried to find our common ground. And it's been 2 years and it's still available on the platform and being downloaded daily. For 1 year, it was free for download, and now it's paid and it's still selling, so great. I think the core of my work is that I don't like talking about pain. I don't like to be associated with racism and pain and expected to only talk about that because it pleases white people with savior complexes. I think most of Black people in the creative area feel that. I mean, I like to talk about everything else, and I can tell it's harder to be heard when you're not talking about what they want to listen to. I talk about love, creativity, fantasy, friendship, loyalty, nature, and being bi and Black and young and living and celebrating. And it got me here. I mean, I started with regular drawings on a notebook, and now still having the freedom to create what I think makes sense for me, not for anyone else, is sort of magical. I've worked with multiple platforms like editorial design, murals. I actually got my first mural job pretending I had experience with it. Someone asked me if I've ever painted walls, and I said, of course. And I hadn't done it actually, but it worked out. And I've done playlist covers, skateboards, chocolate bars, vinyl covers, and I aim to keep exploring everything I can turn into. I recently had the opportunity to present my work in the Latin American Design Awards as a LED Young Talent. And that's an award given to the new generation of Latin American designers under 30. And I entered with my portfolio and was invited to showcase my project in Peru last June. And I actually had 10 minutes to talk, but I used like 5 tops. But it went well, and I won a scholarship to the European Institute of Design for a summer course next year. And I still have no clue when I'm going or what I'm studying, but I did get the B check, so it's okay. And that was my favorite work-related trip. I felt like I was in the right place. And in my talk, I mentioned previous trips that weren't that nice, because there's been 2 times I traveled to receive awards, and one in Madrid and one in São Paulo. And those were the 2 times I was supposed to be celebrating myself and my work. And all I could think about was that I didn't belong there because I felt the most discriminated against. I got mistaken for a roommate because I was standing next to a cleaning cart in front of my own bedroom in the hotel I booked. And I was called on and chased by a security guard in Sephora for looking at expensive perfumes I was buying for a friend. And after that, I took it as my goal to celebrate myself above all. And it was kind of rough getting to that conclusion, sticking to it. I mean, I don't forgive you and I still wish you the worst, but I won't be able to forgive myself if I keep shrinking my conquest to fit in your racist view. And I feel like everyone here might know that most working fields are white dominated, including design, art, and illustration. So of course, it's not the easiest job to be a Black person in the industry, but a Black and young woman in the market is even harder. And most of the time, all I see is white guys stealing identity, subjects, aesthetics, and techniques from racialized people and claiming it as their own. And in reality, I can't see an end to it, so I pretend it doesn't happen and keep on creating and researching new things that can only be made with experience in authorship. And my current work has reached unimaginable clients like Adobe, Apple Music, Hershey's, Snapchat, Converse, YouTube, and I'm excited to figure out what's next. I should probably be explaining more about my project than talking about adversities, but I feel like they build me too. Like, I have pretty tough skin and I'm already strong enough to decline pro bono projects that come up in November with Black Awareness Month. So these last pictures are from my most recent projects, and my research flows through armorial art, vanities embroidery, truck decorations, supermarket ads, botanical arts, and my mood boards are usually confusing and diverse, and I love it when a client doesn't want human figures. And even though I do profound research before each project, the only way I can deliver great things is when I'm able to live my regular life and include those experiences and visuals in my work. By regular, I mean normal, regular, and also getting out of the routine, like traveling, going to the beach, walking with my dog in a different park, partying with friends. And since most of my projects are solved online and I work alone in my room, the common thing would be to get stuck there and feed from the same sources. But I need to be able to live and see my projects with different points of view, and to be able to bring something fresh every day. And yeah, that's about it. I feel like I rushed a bit. So these last projects are from 2020 to 2023. So I feel like I've grown a lot in the last 3 years, and it was surprisingly good to see it happening, but it was also kind of scary seeing it happening so fast, because like from the first opportunity I had with the Where Are the Black Designers to now, I've had more than 30 projects, and it's amazing to see where I'm getting. And thank you, Where Are the Black Designers, and ustwo for having me, and I really appreciate everyone who came. This is my Instagram handle in case you want to see more projects, and my Behance. And yeah, thanks. Let me just stop sharing the screen.
Wow.
Too quick?
No, that was incredible. The chat's going nuts right now. A few questions. One that just came in the chat is, how did you find your style? How did that evolve? You know, of course, people can look at your Instagram, which has been shared in the chat, and you've shared it, of course, where you can kind of look at chronologically how you've evolved. But like from your point of view, how would you say you've evolved? What are some aesthetics and or other Black creatives that you looked up to help navigate your style?
That's actually a great question. People always ask me that, and I'm still figuring out the answer, because I'm still figuring out that I have that personal style. I mean, people started saying that they recognize my style of work from last year to now, and seeing projects that I haven't published yet and saying, did you do this? And it was actually me. And so it's surprising, but I think it's about trying to include in every project you have something that you like and something that you actually feel the pleasure of creating. I actually started using the color palettes that are similar in each project, and I really appreciated working with it, and including little elements that you accidentally repeat in each project, and you actually find out it was your style, like stars and wild animals that don't actually bring human figures. So I feel like it's more about repeating, and you actually find out what's coming up more often than other elements, and you find out what you're really interested in after a few times you deal with clients, and you find out what you like the most to create. And I in the creatives I like to follow, there's one called Lebassis. I don't know how to spell it, but Leandro Assis, he's Brazilian. I put it in the chat. Lebassis. He's like a huge reference for me, and he's super young. He won the Young Guns award like 2 years ago, and he became a friend of mine. So he's amazing. He was super incredible to see that he was a real person with natural growth, and and to see that I can reach that, it was amazing.
Awesome. What was the turning point for you in becoming somebody who was young and loved to draw to making a career out of creating this work? What were your steps? Do you have any initial steps and initial advice that you have for anybody who's looking to make that transition from, you know, quote unquote, a hobby into a professional career?
Oh, I feel like it became a real profession when I started creating things just for portfolio and not getting any income out of it. So I used to study arts, and I actually created some visual identities for friends and family and stuff like that for like less than $100. And I started creating my own portfolio around that, and starting to see that people were able to pay more for that and able to search me for that. So I was interested in that. I was surprised that people had actual interest and started taking it more seriously, like posting it on Instagram, like regular, and Behance. I think that's the most important step, like being present online. Like most of my projects come out with people that find me on Instagram and Behance. I don't search for them; they just pop up, and it's great opportunity.
Awesome. Question that I have is, how can the Wear the Black Designers community help you? What are your biggest challenges? How can we help you out?
I feel like entering the international market, it's something that you've helped me with, because before Wear the Black Designers, I think I only had like national projects, and the open portfolio call was perfect because it was for free. I had the portfolio and I just had to subscribe my work. So I feel like there is a lack of opportunities that way. Most international clients look for like their local base and don't search in other countries. So I feel like that's the opportunity they can open. They can be open for artists from other places. And I think the pandemic kind of worked it out a bit, because people were able to search through work online and search to other professionals online that they weren't open to it before.
Great. And then in the future, is there any challenge that you have that you're looking for, maybe for the Wear the Black Designers community to help you out on? How can we help you?
I don't know. I think this is helping enough. Like talking to
Yes, right.
everyone and being able to share my work and being able to share what my path looked like.
I love it. We've got time for maybe another 1 or 2 questions, and we'll move on to our next Pecha Kucha. If we weren't able to answer any specific questions, hopefully we will be able to answer them at the end of the event. Does that sound good to everybody? Okay, so how has your productivity and your process changed over the last couple of years? And what do you do now to avoid, what do you avoid now to make sure that the work resonates? Like, do you have like a specific process? Do you have a specific mood board or some sort of other thing that you're doing to make sure that you're creating work that you're really proud of, especially when you're getting hired?
I feel like my process kind of shifted from creating everything I could possibly create and taking on every project possible, and ended up creating stuff that I wasn't really proud of and not publishing it. So I think the process was actually finding out what I was into and trying to pick the projects that I actually thought that were good for me and that I could deliver better. So I wouldn't take like now a visual identity for a dentist, but because it doesn't make sense for me, it doesn't make sense for my portfolio. But if a festival comes up and they want me to create something, okay. But I actually started running away from design projects too, because I started focusing more on illustration and running away from design, because I started up only as a designer. And I think the more you create, the more you explore the possibilities. Even if you create something you're not proud of, that builds you, and that creates something for your path that clears up what exactly you like and what you dislike. It's important to create what you don't like, so you know what you like.
Sweet. And are you able to unveil any top secret information on this call? Like, are you working on any particular project or client that you're really excited by?
I don't think I can reveal it yet, but there is a Black Awareness Month campaign that I worked on like on March. So it's really old already, and I'm excited to see it comes out. So I can't reveal the client, super exclusive NDA, but if it comes up, it'll be great.
Awesome. So be sure to follow Amanda on Instagram, and hopefully we'll see that work come out soon. Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome. Please give it up for Amanda in the
Thank you,
chat.
guys. That was awesome.
Again, for any of the questions we weren't able to get to, hopefully we can get to them later.
Yeah,
all right,
and
we got
I'll check
Terrell.
the chat too.
We've got Terrell coming up. Thanks so much, Amanda.
Bye.
I love her work. That's awesome. Let me share my screen. All right, hold on. Sorry, let me get this right before I pop it up. Can you hear me okay, by the way?
Absolutely. Hear you perfectly.
Okay.
Everyone give it up for
Awesome.
Terrell in the chat.
That's it. So hold on, let me pop this thing up. Okay. And we are ready. So sorry. Can you see this, by the way?
Yeah, we can see the presenter view.
Okay, hold on. I probably shared the wrong screen. Sorry. Let me do this.
All good.
This thing acts weird. I'm loving everything so far, man. It's like super motivating. Like, got me pumped seeing her work. That's awesome. It got me all motivated over here where I'm like, okay, I gotta get it together. I love it. Okay. And here we go. Okay. So can you see this one this time?
There we go. Perfectly. Now we see one slide at a time.
Okay, awesome. So my name is Terrell Waiters. I am a graphic designer, illustrator. I'm based out of New Hampshire. I'm born and raised in Florida originally. And I started my career off as an illustrator. Firstly, I wanted to be a painter. Um, I was really deeply into painting. No one else around me really understood it. Everybody else was playing sports and stuff. I did sports, but I didn't like it. And I always knew I really wanted to be an artist, but I just didn't know exactly what to do with those skills. So I met a high school art teacher who really seen what I could do. She just fell in love with what I was doing and promised me one day she was going to get me a show. She finally got me into community college. When I got there, it really like started to hone in on my skills. And I got a random phone call from her one day and was like, hey, I got you a show. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. And I'm like 19. So I do a solo gallery show, became a painter, got really well known for it in my hometown, to the point my college president came, seen it. They offered me a full like scholarship to college. And I went to university to pursue a career as an artist. I started off as a painter, but then seeing the illustration department. When I seen illustration, I just fell in love with it. I was like, this is sick, but I had no clue what I could do with it. I just knew about Saturday morning cartoons, editorials, and magazines and stuff like that. But I didn't really know how to hone in on the skills. And I'm watching people around me who know all these artists, and I didn't follow people, but I just became my own person. I strayed away from everybody, stayed in my dorm, and just honed in on my skills. What you're seeing here is just like a grouping of illustrations that I've done over the years. This one was specifically for Black History Month, but it wasn't for anyone in particular. I just like create stuff. I go on a whim. I go off the top of my head. I don't really use inspiration. I literally do everything free-handed. And one of my biggest musicians that I love the most was MF Doom. So when he passed away, I ended up doing this illustration as well. And I mainly like to work traditionally. I'm a firm believer in traditional stuff. Like there's an aesthetic to that that's always pleasing to me, but I'm still trying to find my hand in digital. So now I'm trying to find a way to mix the two. So this is the illustration that I was reached out to by the Seattle Seahawks. They reached out to me personally, asked me would I do some illustrations for them for their website, their social media posts. And I did these. These are the players that they reached out to me about, and I did that. And once I found my hand in illustration, I ended up getting career in apparel. So I started my career off by working for Abercrombie and Fitch. I was an apparel graphic designer for them. I did that for about 5 years until they did like some transitional stuff within the organization. And I ended up being let go. But that was also the best thing for me because with all the skill sets that I learned at that company, it opened a doorway up for any other apparel company. I mean, Abercrombie was like the pinnacle when it came to design because they teach you in so many ways in depth, like throughout the company, that like opens the doorway up to any other organization. When you go in, you already know exactly what you need to do. All that you need to know is, well, what do they need you to do for them? And then from Abercrombie, that opened up the doorway for me to go into Sears and Kmart, where I ran the entire women's division. I was an apparel graphic designer for Sears and Kmart. I did that for 2 years. I did everything for sending out to vendors, like breaking down how graphics are created, didn't even go into like schools and colleges to help recruit and stuff like that as well. And these are also some of the graphics that I created for Sears and Kmart. And then I also had an opportunity to go and work for the Pokemon company as well, based around the skill sets that I obtained from working in the apparel industry. Pokemon had an opening where they needed some apparel artists. They reached out to me, and it's weird because I've had a really lucky like transition throughout my time in the industry where I've applied to a lot of companies, but during my time, I would have so many companies reach out to me. And it was because I would always post stuff online and Behance and all that kind of stuff. So these were a few graphics that I got to create for Pokemon that were out for sale. And it was some secret stuff I got to do for them too, for some other companies. That's really dope. Not sure when it's coming out, but if it does, that'd be pretty awesome because it's for something really, really cool. And after that, I ended up luckily getting a book deal. I ended up getting a book deal with Nobrow Press in London. They reached out to me, and it was a project I was working on my own. It was called Vern. At that time, I didn't really have a name for it. I was just posting stuff on Behance, and they reached out. They liked what I was doing. They asked me what I was doing with it. I had no real clue what I was doing when it came to trying to produce something on my own, and I got to showcase it. It went through 2 acquisitions, and it did really well to the point where they signed a deal with me. I ended up finishing the book. It came out, and it's really doing well, which is crazy. And it still really hasn't 100% sunken in that I have a like an actually like published book where, you know, being a kid, you always want to do something, but you're not sure exactly if it's ever going to happen. Most people give up on a dream, but it's not coming to them at the time that they want. And this is something I worked on for over 6 years by myself. And it took me about 2 to actually finish because I wrote the book, I illustrated everything, I colored everything. I did it all, which was like a really cool and very tiring process. So I was really happy when it was done. And from there, it's like after working in the industry for so long, I did it for a decade. I chose to step away, and I'm currently trying to start my own small apparel business. It's what I know, it's what I love, and I'm calling it Stray Unicorn because being the only Black designer in apparel for 10 years that I've been in the industry, I feel like you have so much magic that's never really tapped into 100%. Most people just use the surface level amount of, you know, talent that you actually have. But for me currently, I want to give everyone my all. So what I'm doing right now is I'm starting my own thing. I've actually pitched to Carter's, the company in Atlanta. They actually signed a contract with me. They bought 5 of my graphics, and I'm now going to pitch to them again. And I'm also pitching to a few other organizations that I worked with in the past. So that's where I'm at currently with what I do. And yeah, sorry if that was really fast talking, but yeah.
All right, everyone give it up for Terrell. That's
Sorry if that was too fast, man. You know.
no, we all good. We're
Okay.
like perfect. So
Okay.
have about 6 minutes or so of questions. So again, if we're not able to get to some of these, we'll go a little bit, we'll get some of these answered a little bit later. But first things first, how can the community help you? Can we help you in any sort of way from the merch side or something else?
I mean, it'd be rad to do merch, but I mean, honestly, I mean, similar to like Amanda, what she was saying, it's like, for me personally, I feel like what y'all are already doing, it's helpful. Like most people who are probably in this chat right now, probably never even heard of me before. So I think having this opportunity to even sit here and present anything and showcase some of my work, like, I mean, that's not even all of it. Like, I think this alone is like very helpful for someone like me in my stature. Cause you know, I still love to consider myself as a nobody. I think that keeps me grounded. I don't really use the word humble anymore, but it keeps my feet on the ground and my head still could be in the clouds at the same time because I'm always constantly dreaming big. So
Speaking of dreaming big, are there any graphics that that are on the horizon that you're excited to talk about? Any new ones that are in your head that just haven't gotten down in public yet?
So I have some stuff. One I'm not gonna talk about yet. Similar. I got to do some stuff for Nike that was pretty cool, but other than that, it was like I'm still like pushing. So I'm in the midst of talking to a company I'm like hoping it goes through well. And once that does, I will let y'all know about it, which is pretty sick. But currently it's just like still like dreaming, still putting stuff together.
Cool. Question from Kelsey and others probably have the similar question is, how does one go about finding opportunities and pitching to companies like you've been doing? What's your process? Do you have any advice for the community?
Yeah. Honestly, use your contacts. I mean, I'm a person that's gotten to meet a lot of people over the years, but I'm also a person that's like pretty much a lone wolf. I love to do stuff by myself, but I'm also really great with working with a team. But over the years, all those people who I've met and made these relationships with over the past like years, that's also contacts that you could tap into because they may have a connect that you don't know and it may actually help you out and you just don't realize it. So for me, for instance, with what I ended up getting to happen for me rolling with Carter's, I reached out to a manager that I used to work with at Abercrombie. Me and him had a really great connection. We had a really good working relationship, and he just so happened to be the art director at Carter's. I reached out, was like, hey man, listen, I'm starting my own thing. This is what I'm trying to offer. Would you be interested to see some of my stuff? Yeah, dude, like, can you show me? Cool. Put a presentation together, laid it out properly, sent it over to them. They seen it. They loved what I was doing, and they ended up purchasing some stuff. And now all those other connections I used in the past with freelance, now I'm using all those connections of full-time jobs and freelance opportunities and now reaching out to them as like now a new prospect for ongoing work. So that's how I kind of like do that. And I also tap into LinkedIn.
Hypothetical for you. What if you didn't have that Abercrombie connect, right? Who now works at Carter? What would you say is like the next best thing? Are you hitting up people in DMs on LinkedIn? Like, are you using like Rocket Reach, like a tool to find their email address? Like, what are you doing in order to like break in if you don't have that connect yet?
Instagram. Like, seriously, I use Instagram a lot. So I'll reach out to a company. I recently did it with Stitch Fix. So I used to freelance for Stitch Fix. I don't really know the point of contacts there anymore because a lot of them were let go. So what I did, honestly, I just reached out to a DM. Listen, here's my name. I'm a small time company, blah, blah, blah. I'm starting off. Would you guys be interested in seeing some outsourced vendors? Oh, yeah. They reached out back to me. They gave me the point of contact. Cool. There you go. And then from there, now I'm just reaching out. But before I do that, I want to make sure all my stuff's laid out properly where I do look professional, even though I'm small, but I can look big. So I always try to do that where I try to sit down, put all my eggs, align everything properly, and then send it out. And like, okay, here you go. Just let them know like I'm serious about what I'm doing.
Cool. That's really useful. Thanks. Couple questions in the chat that are somewhat related around the challenges of around the time you're pivoting your career. Do you have any like specific or important lessons that you like learned that we should know about? Specifically like transitioning from an illustrator to someone in design. Did you happen to feel like lost or confused after graduating college? Like what was the whole process like, and what advice do you have for people who are looking to do a career pivot, specifically for people who are illustrators trying to get into design?
I would say it's similar to what Toby was preaching at the beginning about like basically the imposter syndrome. I feel like when I was in college, I didn't necessarily know exactly how to utilize my tools that I already had. When you're in school, they definitely in illustration, they mainly teach you how to like basically create a style. And for me, I didn't want a style. I wanted to be versatile. Like for me, being versatile is like killer because you could literally jump to any project that you want. If someone needed to draw this way, you could easily jump over and do that. And when I got my job at Abercrombie, I was super nervous because here's an entirely brand new organization that I'm not even a fan. I never wore their clothes. So I already have this expectation of this organization and what they want. And it's predominantly white. I was literally the only Black designer in the entire company. And I jump in and I'm already feeling like a fish out of water. I'm from a small town. I'm in a brand new state. I've never been here before. And it was slightly difficult, but it was more so on my part, not theirs. And it was because I was so in my head about that until I actually sat down and I seen what I actually had to offer versus other people. So when I was doing art and I noticed people that was working at this company for like 6, 8, 10, 15 years, they would see what I was doing and they started asking me, how do you do that? it was literally my aha moment. I was like, okay, I don't need to worry about anything anymore. So as soon as I seen that and what I actually have to offer to someone, and they see my skill set, that was automatically, they understand my worth. So once that was seen, I let everything else go. And after that, any other company I went to, it's not even a big head thing. I already knew what I had to offer. It's just them being open to let me come in and do my thing. So once I understood that, it was easy for me.
Yo, thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, everyone give it up for Terrell.
Thank you.
All right. Is everyone enjoying the event so far? Can everyone let us know in the chat? Has this been like interesting, useful, entertaining? Awesome. Dope. Awesome. Reminder, if you do want to ask a question, please put it in the Q&A section of Zoom. All right. Last but not least, for our Pecha presentation, we got Osmond. What's up, Osmond?
I'm good. How are you?
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday to you too, man.
All right. Take it away. I'll see you in about 7-8 minutes for Q&A.
Yeah, cool. Great.
Everyone give it up for Osmond.
First of all, thank you to everybody. This is my first Pecha Kucha. I really didn't know what it was. I literally had to Google, what is that? So thank you so much. I'm Osmond Tshuma, aka Wako Tshuma. I'm Zimbabwean born. I'm currently in South Africa. I'm also the co-founder of Mamgobozi Design Factory. Like my work, I think from a very long time has always been inspired by like the African identity, and literally I think every single thing there's that golden thread, because I think for me it's always about creating work that the older generation, when they look at it, they're able to recognize where they're coming from, and then also almost like intrigue something in the younger generation to want to look back and then almost like, what is this, you know? So almost like trying to bridge the gap between the now and the old. So even with the clients that we get at Mamgobozi Design Factory, it has to be something African. We do get sometimes work from abroad, and every single thing of ours has to almost like tap into that country or that continent, because we believe, I think every single thing has to have a story, like every single identity or visual language that we create. So like with every single thing that we do, how can you create a Basotho crest? Most crests are very quite European, like the two lions, the two horses. In this case, it was a family crest for Tapelo Mkwena, and literally it references the Basotho culture. Here we're looking at the beer brand based in Cape Town, and they celebrate being Nguni. So then the reference was literally Ukamba, and Ukamba it's a traditional pot, and we're using that to create this new identity. And every single thing that we do, I think the question that we always ask ourselves is, how does African design look like? And African design is very versatile. We can't really pinpoint it. But for us, I think it's about that journey, like to look for it, to try to find what it is, and also like create this work. I think before lockdown, I decided to just start this project called Africa Love Letters, like celebrating African countries' like independence. So literally almost like creating an identity for each country when they celebrate their own freedom. And literally it was kind of very fun, because I wrote the brief, I then created the work. For this, I've never been to Ghana, but I would love to. So I literally looked at the Ndingra symbols, and I chose one that represents strength and humility to celebrate the 63rd Zimbabwe. Everything from Zim has got this mother bird. Everybody knows this. But for me, it's like, cool. Like we've got so many cultures there, right? So what can I use and tap into the folklore of Nyami Nyami and the Great Zimbabwe, like to create a new story. Celebrating the woman's role in the freedom in the freedom in Eritrea, using the patterns from the Habesha dresses, and literally, like, because sometimes as designers we really get stuck on how to design, and for this it was literally just me experimenting with letter forms, having fun, just trying to see what I can pull out of the country, you know. And for me, like the design part is almost like the 20% or 30%, but the 70% is the research. That is the part that really excites me, because then I get to look and then trying to find and see like what the cultures are about. You know what I mean? Chad, celebrating the tribal markings, which symbolizes beauty. So literally, like I think you can all see that. I think my golden thread is all about celebrating who we are as Africa. Using the sun mask that celebrates the coming of the farming season, you know, using that to create letter forms. And I think it's quite interesting because all this research, it was during lockdown, and everything I had to do online, like read papers, look for museum stuff, you know, like I'm trying to look for things, you know. But I think what I started enjoying was the playing around of letter forms, like creating letter forms, especially with this one, like using the rigidness of the mask, like pulling that and then creating letter forms. And sometimes when I start a project, I really have no idea how the project is going to end. And then only through playing. And sometimes we forget that process of playing as designers, because sometimes as client, when you get a project, like you only are given like, let's say maybe like a week or two. However, I think when you do like creative projects, there's really room for you to be able to play around and then try to create whatever you like. And also, I think with this, during this time, I think it also tapped into that thing of, is this work really good? But I got to a point of using Instagram, because all this work is on my Instagram. I got to a point of literally using Instagram as an artist book, as a way of just create the work and then post it out there. This work, questions, are we really Nigerians? If some of our artifacts are currently not in the country, like this queen pendant that was taken from Nigeria like 126 years ago. And then like seeing the whole project, at which I didn't finish all the project, like the whole thing. But I think I got to like around 40 something. And that was kind of good, like to literally stand back and then see the work. Yeah, I'm really chuffed like with this body of work. Yeah, thank you. I think I was really running. But yeah, you can check my Instagram. I think most of the work there is there. I really use Instagram as a way of, it's an artist book. At first, I think I was very quiet. I was almost like a perfectionist, but I think I got to the point of just creating the work and saying, here's the work, it's unfinished, and just enjoying the process. Yeah, thank you.
Everyone give it up for Osmond and their incredible work. Thank you, Osmond. I have a few questions, and feel free, please continue to add questions in the Q&A in Zoom. What country was the most challenging to design for?
Wow. I think Liberia. Liberia was hard. Yeah, I think Liberia was hard. Literally, it was because sometimes African countries share certain cultures with another neighboring country. That is how borders did it. Like borders just came and then just divided people. So sometimes, for example, if you look at Mali, the architectural structures in Mali, some of them, you can find them in other neighboring countries. So sometimes I will use an inspiration from this country. Now I'm looking at another country, it is the same work. Like for example, Eritrea, the Bisha, you will find them in Ethiopia. So the challenging part was literally to find something that is quite specific to that country, which is very hard because sometimes they share. For example, Zimbabwe and South Africa, sometimes they share certain elements. So yeah, but Liberia was hard. Yeah.
When you start thinking about creating a logo mark for a specific country to represent the country how the project is intended to, what are the first things you look at as reference points? It seems like archives are a very important part of looking at the work, and I'm curious, what do you use to look at first? Do you typically look at clothing, maybe sort of government structure, building, something like that first? Do you look at photography? What are the first archives you use, and how deep do you go?
Oh, cool. So first, I look at the stuff that everybody sees. Like for example, the stuff that everybody knows. Like for example, if you Google Zimbabwean work, right, or Zimbabwean designs, so what comes out? Everything with this Zim flag or with this bird, right? So then I then say, cool, this is where everybody is, and then I then start digging on the culture, on the traditions, the ceremonies, and then sometimes also artifacts. Yeah, and then also I'm doing that, I always have a question on top, right? A statement whereby whatever work I create, it must honor the people in the country. It mustn't disrespect. It must celebrate, and whoever sees the work must feel like this person took the time to create this work, and like I did not offend anyone, because you can easily offend people because I haven't been there. So I have to try and look for things that if I had to create work, they'll be able to be like, okay, cool. This person is not from here, but the way that they created this work was to literally honor us, not just like be comical. Yeah.
Do you have any favorite African typographers and type designers that you want to give a shout out to?
Oh yes, literally. It's going to see my presentation. I was using Mutapa by Garikai Sebastian. There's a guy from Durban, Tindo, Taurayim Take, amazing designer. Simon Chawe. Yeah, okay, well, right now, like literally, like straight from my mind, but then, yeah, like, the cards out there. Yeah.
Incredible. Are you able to share some of their links in the chat?
Yes,
So
yes.
they're more work? Incredible. Awesome. I feel like we could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. We only have like another minute, and then we'll move on to the next presenter. But how can the community help you? What would you like to ask the community for help on, if anything?
Oh wow. Yeah, I think balancing time. I think because I think sometimes as designers, especially for me, I get so like time. Sometimes I just want to create, and then I get carried away. I just want to create more stuff, and I'm like, how do designers literally manage time? Yeah, I'm still learning that because sometimes I just want to. That would be a very cool idea. Like, oh, it's done. No, but then what about if we did a blanket? Yeah, so yeah, I think how to manage our time, and yeah, I think that for me is a big problem. I'm still learning that.
Awesome. Yeah. If anybody has any time management help or hacks, any advice, please for Osmond, please put that in the chat. Sound good? Everyone, give it up for Osmond. Thank you so much, Osmond, for coming and presenting your incredible work.
Thank you.
All right, last up, we've got Taylor in the house. Everyone give it up for Taylor. Taylor's going to be presenting and focusing on financial literacy for about 20 minutes, and then we'll do about 10-minute Q&A. Does that sound good, Taylor?
Yeah, it sounds perfect to me.
Awesome.
Everyone hear me?
Yes, perfectly. And then after Taylor's
sweet.
presentation, we'll do a quick closing, including some wrap-up questions for everybody, and we'll get out of here in about 35 minutes or so. All right, take it away, Taylor.
I'll go ahead and share my stuff. So what's up, people? Oh, let's see if this works. 3, 2, 1. Awesome. All right, sweet. My name's Taylor. Yeah, Tayler Ayers, this is the title. Get the bag, keep the bag, make the bag bigger. So it's kind of like a really entry level, like understanding to finance. And I know it's like a huge topic. I understand that's super stressful, but my entire intention is to not make it stressful. Just brief little rough background. These are my parents. My mom is actually in the chat right now. So her name is Betsy. If you see that, that's my mom. So I'm adopted. I'm from a small town in Georgia, and 29 years old. And like my like route to finance is like super interesting. Both my parents are entrepreneurs. My mom's a dentist. Dad is like traditionally trained as an accountant, and he's done the books for my mom and done books for other clients. So I've always like grown up, not necessarily like in a finance degree, but finance and entrepreneurial adjacent. And then I'm somewhere like adjacent, and then I'm somewhere like right dab in the middle, literally as this picture shows, like because I'm in the middle. Played competitive tennis my entire life, wanted to go play professional. That didn't work out. Played at SCAD, which is the design school in Georgia. That's actually how I met Mitzi and Garrett. Mitzi and I had a freshman class together. That's how I got put on to Where Are the Black Designers. And then Garrett, who helped get the Where Are the Black Designers started, he and I are roommates. Like our first like apartment off campus, we were roommates with each other. So yeah, I don't mean to sound like a hipster, but I knew them back before this. So that was always kind of a flex to me. But basically, like long story short, like I went to 3 different colleges. My art school was my last one. And like the big thing is like, okay, how does someone who has hand tattoos, paints flowers, and like went to art school, got into finance, yada, yada, yada. The pandemic happened and whatnot. I went home and I like made some money during the pandemic, and my dad was like, man, none of this money is just sitting here. You're losing money. Like you're not making any money off interest from the bank. You should invest it, yada, yada, yada. So started to do that, invested something, saw like my first like crazy return. And I was like, oh, it'll keep going up. It didn't go up, it crashed. So then I was like and it went from like 4 figures all the way down to like 1 figure in a matter of an evening. So then I was like, wait, this is so fascinating. So keep in mind, this is 2021. And what was also happening in 2021 was the AMC and GameStop stuff. So I am chronically online. I'm only trying to get my screen time up even higher. So I like lived on Reddit. I'm like not even kidding. Like I was on every subreddit. I was in every Discord. I would like for a period of like 3 months, like all I would do was talk about like 10-year bond yield treasuries, like stock market, European market, housing market, the consumer price index. Like I got up like to the point where like I almost like abandoned art. I got so obsessed with the stock market. Fast forward a little bit of that. And then I was like, because most of like my following was on Instagram. And I was like, where does this come to be? Like, how can I connect this like find this love for or interest in like education / financial literacy, but also the art side of it, because a lot of like people who followed me and the people I went to school with were artists, and a lot of them were out of college and they were already making money but like didn't know what to do with it. So fast forward, that's how Create came to be. It's basically just a community focused approach to financial literacy. I went to design school, so like I said, I started it from the perspective of someone who's on the outside of finance, but I knew that if I took the minimalist aesthetic and approach of maybe something from like the Bauhaus or something as sleek as the iPhone or like a really simple outfit and took that ethos and put it in the context of finance, I knew that I could make something really complex, super digestible. And I was like, okay, not only is this not only is there a, like kind of a product market fit, because one, the market doesn't exist, but it's also an opportunity to speak to creative people about a topic that is inherent in everyday part of life. Like regardless of people, if you're selling thousands of dollars 1 month, or you're working at an agency and you hear 401k and Roth IRA, like this stuff is essential. It's part of everyone's life. So this is Create. So I'll basically just give like a rough rundown. Like if someone said, you have 20 minutes to talk about financial literacy, and that was the opportunity. So I have this thing called, like, I love to speak in almost like not metaphors, but I like love to speak in like quirky little words. So like play the hits is like, obviously people are familiar with top 40, like the music that's on. I'm from Atlanta, so Bad and Bougie, like that first Migos album is like, that's probably one of the most important albums that come out of the entire South, like in like the past like 30 or 40 years. And like they're being in Georgia and in SCAD when that album came out, like you couldn't go anywhere without hearing like Bad and Bougie or like Stir Fry or like Get Right Witcha. And so the whole play the hits thing is that I think with finance, people are like, I don't know where to start. Well, NFT this and Bitcoin this and what about metaverse this and Web3? And well, I heard we should buy Rice future. And I'm just like, listen, take your favorite artist. Their favorite artist ends the evening playing hits for a reason. Like you never go broke playing the hits. Like I'm a diehard John Mayer fan. Sure, I would love to hear like something off his like 10th album, but what I really want to hear is the guitar solo at the end of Slow Dancing in a Burning Room. It's like if you're a Future fan, like sure you want to hear some like throwaway feature, but you want to hear at the same damn time, like at 11 o'clock. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, or even if you're like a Beyonce fan, like you want to hear Drunken Love. So it's like if they don't go broke playing the hits, like kind of take that same approach to finance. It's like if you're interested in investing, do the things that statistically have worked year over year. So that's kind of what I would kind of way I've approached it. So retirement, everyone's heard of like 401k, like Roth IRA and whatnot. So how do I say this? Like nothing I'm saying is financial advice, but here's what I would do in your situation, which is basically like if you're at a design agency or you work corporate or you work in tech and you hear 401k match it, whether it's 3%, 6%, and basically it's like 3% of what like gets taken out of your like income, they will match. That's like the only free lunch there ever is. It's basically free money, and you can transfer it. You can transfer it over to a new job, or you can cash it out. I'll let you do more research on that. Can't tell you what to do with that, but you can transfer your 401ks over. For your self-employed people like myself, you can get a Roth IRA. And you can invest in it monthly. You can do one big lump sum. And once you're 60, all of the money that you take out of that is completely tax-free. Another thing about like retirement and like investing is that some people are like, oh, well, I spent this much money. That's like a lot of money. And I'm like, okay, yes, but also so is like your utilities and your trash that you take out, or like your water bill or gas. So it's like, just treat your like investing or retirement like monthly bills and automate it. And then the last one, invest on like literally like the picture says, go long, because I think some people are like, I'm gonna put $100 in and it's gonna turn $300 overnight. That just doesn't happen. And like if you invest over a long time and look at the average rate of return of like the S&P 500, which is like the like everyone associates with stock market. It's like a fund basically. If you look at it over a long time, it's only gone up like 600% year over year since like before all of us are basically even born. So think on a long term. Then another one, I also like I communicate memes. I think memes are actually an art form. So that's why like everything I communicate in is like through the context of a meme. So like savings, I know that can be a bit of like a heated word. People are like, oh, how can I have savings when like year over year things have increased? Just take this as it is. So like a HYSA is a high yield savings account. So in normal accounts, you might get like a penny of interest each time or like every month. But with a high yield savings account, like let's say you have like $100 in there or $1,000 in there, and the interest rate. So interest is how much money costs. A bank will pay you a certain percentage to like put your money in that account. So it's like a really good way, like, you know, maybe if you come into like a bonus check, or maybe if you come into, God forbid, someone gets in a car crash or something bad happens, but maybe you have like an inheritance or whatever it is. Everyone's situation is different. You can put your money in there if you're not quite ready to invest, or if you don't want to invest at all, you just want to put your money into that. The saving the 15% of 25% of your monthly income, that can kind of fluctuate, because I know as entrepreneurs, your income can fluctuate, but having like a little bit of an idea of like, no matter what, like I'm still going to go out, I'm still going to buy my like $9 matcha latte at Blue Bottle, like cool, slay, go off, but also be like, okay, maybe I save some of that. Maybe I spend $9 and put $9 away as well. And like automate your savings. I don't know if banks have this feature yet, but there's a couple apps like Rocket Money. I think Acorns has one where like you can say, I want to invest like $50 or like $100 out of each paycheck and put it into a savings account. So that's something, so you don't have to think about it. Because some people are like, if it's there, I'll spend it. But not everyone's like that. So, taxes. So yeah, if you're making money, especially as a self-employed people, but also it's also in general, like you got to pay the man. Like people here like, oh, 30 grand, half of that is taxes. Or like, oh, this person making like 100 grand or like 50 grand or like half of that's taxes. Basically, like I'm kind of saying on like a big term here, just because I kind of like to give myself like a big margin of error. So you have to consider taxes and whatnot. Yeah, so I also really want AirPod Maxes, so I thought that meme was funny, or AirPod Maxes. But basically, so if you're self-employed, you have to think in the context of write-offs. So I'm always like, this is a write-off, this trip could be a write-off, that could be a write-off, which basically you can write it off, and that amount you'd be able to deduct from your year-end taxes. Oh, yes, compound interest. So here is a kind of a crazy thing for me. I think behind human existence and behind bringing a child into this world / being alive, compound interest is the second greatest element to the entire existence of humanity. And I don't just mean compound interest in the context of finance, just mean compound interest, like consistently working towards something like day in, day out, year over year, over 10 years, like having the discipline to like stick to the plan, not just for a month, but for like over like a 10-year period. So I think there's a huge trend with millennials, but specifically with Gen Z, it's like, if my iPad is not here 30 seconds after I order it, I don't want it. And it's like, that's cool. We've all been like Amazon Prime pilled, but it's like, if you invest over time or like work on the craft over time, like the gains of that compound into something bigger. So like I said, start small. My mom's in here. She's always said, like, how do you eat an elephant? It's like one bite at a time. That's something she's been telling me as a kid. So it's like, maybe you can invest $100, but maybe, or save $100, but maybe you can start at 10. And 10 between Wednesday and Thursday may not be a lot, but $10 a week over 6 months is like a decent amount of money. Now, then like imagine that over like 10 years, and then consistency. I stole this meme from a popular Instagram account called Nolita Dirtbag, which is really fun. Well, I didn't steal it, I just like repurposed it. Anyways, so if you're like, okay, this is all great, what are some things I can immediately do? So if you're self-employed, or if you're just like curious about it, you can connect with an accountant, which is going to be essential. Like you want to get all your expenses in order. You want to get know that like, oh, I just got this project and this is W-9, but this is a 1099. It's like, cool, like go off. That's really fun. Throw it up on the gram, like the project, but also understand the backside of that and understand that like, there's based on that sheet you get, you can like there's a whole different world with that on the accounting side. Open a high yield savings account. You could literally Google it during the middle of this talk if you want to, or afterwards. High yield savings account. You could open that today. And yeah, you can get them internationally as well. Start a Roth, which is a Roth IRA is an individual retirement account. You can max it out each month. Max it out each month which it's like $542, or you can pay what you can each month. And so if you can only pay one amount, that's fine. But something that I always like to say is like, lifestyle inflation is a huge issue where it's like the more money you make, the more money you spend. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. If the more money you make and the more money you spend, being the more money that you spend is like something that goes towards your future. So it's like either in being like, okay, I'm making X amount more, I can invest more or I can save more. And I can maybe also get in a bigger apartment, but I'm also going to put myself in a good position and not just be like, oh, I can afford a higher car payment, or I can afford to eat at this restaurant even more. And also like the last two ones are kind of just more like, hey, like patience, like this stuff takes time. If you're young, that's fine. If you're old, that's fine. It's Warren Buffett has this quote where he's like, the best time to plant a tree is yesterday and today. And it's like, that sounds like so like Tumblr corny, like buy my book on Amazon core, but it's also like so accurate. So it's something to think about. And also just give yourself a break. Like this stuff isn't hard. Like this stuff is hard. And I believe that the financial culture, the financial industry specifically, or one of the issues with it is that like most people who look like me are not allowed access, or look like me, people of color, women, whatever you identify as, like non-white, it's like very hard industry to break into. I personally think that's an inherent intentional decision that no one really likes to talk about. So give yourself a break. Like the fact that you're even like tuned into this is like a step in the right direction. So yeah. Also, this is like our saying, the more you know is the more you grow. I believe knowledge, or I believe like people always say knowledge is power. I don't believe in that. I believe the application of knowledge is power. And it is in my opinion, it is our obligation to create or provide a service that can not only benefit our lives, but lives around us and lives to come. And then also contacting. So I run an accounting firm with my dad, and we specifically help content creators, designers, like we're helping a dog walking company based out of Atlanta. We just work with like one-on-one with people, and we just help people get their accounting in order and make sure they're doing well for taxes and manage all their books, so that like if you want to paint and draw all day and get that great check from Coca-Cola, that's great. Let's also make sure you save a percentage of that for taxes, because no one likes to talk about that stuff, but we will gladly help you. So that's my personal Instagram right there, Tayler.Ayers. Smash that follow, flood my DMs if you want to. The We Create is the business, is the create account. If you want to screenshot this, you can. And then, yeah, so that's really, oh, wait, I just completely messed it up. Oh, let me stop share. Yeah, so that's the long and short of like what I do and what we do. Oh, okay, that's fine. So yeah, I hope, I'm literally sweating right now. But I hope I answered anything, or I hope it was impactful or helpful.
All right, everyone give it up for Tayler in the chat. Okay, Tayler, I run Useful School, and we actually have a financial wellness class coming up in the fall. So I'm really stoked to talk to you about a lot of things.
Dope.
Okay, let's just go rapid fire with a bunch of questions, okay?
Done.
Number one, does your accounting firm also help companies or just individuals?
Companies, individuals, like, yeah, we're helping companies of all kinds, like any size. Yeah.
What are your favorite subreddits to follow, and ideally ones that specifically focus on Black individuals?
They're a little bit harder to split up by race and whatnot, but I would say a really good one is FIRE Lifestyle. So FIRE. There's another one called Entrepreneurship, and the other one is called Economy. Reddit's, I guess, like known for not necessarily like showing race, although it can get a little bit dicey at times. But those are just some good ones to like kind of tap into.
All right. A good number of individuals, specifically people of color, have a lot of money trauma, and it's tough for them to untangle the burdens of money alongside capitalism, consumerism, and inequality. And a lot of individuals in our community might be anti-capitalists. Like, what do you have as advice or to potentially overcome and address money trauma?
Man, I think I believe there are financial therapists out there, and I think there's some who might even do some pro bono work if you're not necessarily like in the budget to to afford something like that, but also like understanding like, how do I say this? Let's say maybe you don't share the same economical standpoint as maybe someone who's like capitalist, like historically America is and whatnot. Understanding certain financial terms are just like inevitable to every type of economy, even if you don't necessarily want to partake in a way that certain systems and institutions may have systemically oppressed people. It's important to at least be knowledgeable of these things so that you can either change the way they're done, or you can kind of like internally try to like work through those things on your own. And then also like finding like resources. Like that's one of the bigger reasons why we started this stuff, is because like I understand at times like financial insecurity, especially as a person of color. There's not a lot of people who look like me in those worlds. So it's like kind of understanding to be like, hey, there's someone who like looks like me and not like my crazy like right-wing uncle, toxic uncle guy. So yeah.
Thank you for that. How much money do you feel like you need per year to be happy, and how'd you figure out that number?
Oh, I don't know that number, to be honest. I saw this statistic in like 2016 where it said after, and this is outdated. It was like 2016, but it definitely wasn't recent. It was like after almost like $73,000 post-tax, like the amount of money, more money you have after that doesn't actually change your quality of living once your basic needs are met. I don't believe in that because the cost of living has literally increased like year over year, even in that short time frame. I think again comes down to value. That's like a personal question. I have no issue answering it, but it's like something I'm personally navigating. But I don't know. I don't really know what that number is. I think what I honest to God think is that on a basic level, I think people's happiness would be elevated maybe like 5 to 10 or 5 to 15% if all they had to do was work and just get their basic needs met. I truly think that's how most people would probably feel like 15% happier. I don't know if that's backed any data. That's only backed on like what I can perceive, but that's just my personal opinion.
What are your favorite resources for debt elimination for those who have debt?
Okay, so there's a couple things you can actually go through. Either it's a debt collector or like work through a bank where you can consolidate all of your debt and bake it into one big payment versus like paying this person, that person. That's something to look at. Again, everyone's debt is situational, especially with student loans coming up. Some are private student loans, some are federal student loans. Something also to consider is interest rates. It's one thing to have debt. It's another thing to understand that like if you have $15,000 of debt at a 15 to 21% interest rate, you're not only losing 15,000, it's 21% of interest on top of that. So what I would personally do is focus on the debt that you have that has the highest interest rate and pay that down first. Even if it's like $10, just start paying it down. And also here's a myth that people always say, I don't believe this. You can invest and pay off debt at the same time. You can invest and pay off debt at the same time. So
how?
I mean, if you're like, oh, okay, I want to pay down $3,000 of like my credit card. It's like, okay, cool. You could start. I mean, now what I said is like a sexy way to say that, but the less sexy way of saying that is understanding like maybe it's a good idea to start like a loose budget and be like, okay, I want to start investing, but I also want to pay off this debt. Maybe I don't hit Sweet Green 3 times a week, and one of those, or maybe I don't go to this place 3 times a week. Maybe I put that $16 to debt repayment, but also put $16 into like Acorn or Robinhood or Fidelity or something like that. So you can these things don't have to be binary, but people are like, you're poor, you have debt, you can't do this until you do that. That's not true. That's BS. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Do you know of any classes or offer any classes specifically on finance for freelancers?
No, I do not know of any specifically, but I am in the process of making one. So don't worry.
When's that coming out?
Bro, well, I'm about to launch this thing. I just got to get into the lab and start cooking again, get on my Einstein vibes. So I'll start getting in the lab because I was like, bro, why don't I have a class? I was like, I need to start doing this. I was like, I need to feed the people, give them what they want, help the community. So, that's coming. I don't want to say like coming soon, but coming soon.
Would you recommend keeping all your money in one bank, but with various accounts, or setting up money in various banks?
So, okay, I'll come at it from a personal perspective, and I'll also come or on a personal finance and also on a business set. So let's say you're self-employed or you have a side hustle, get one. I know this because my dad's an accountant and he says doing my books for a while was a nightmare. If you are selling whatever it is you're selling, get one bank account that all that stuff is associated with. So Stripe, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, everything send it into that one account, because when you actually want to reconcile, which is organize all those things, you don't want to be going through a PayPal, this debit card, that it's a nightmare. So that's on a self-employment level, freelance, whatever, side hustle. On a personal level, what I would do, let's say you work for someone, don't make it harder than it is. Have a saving, have a checking, and then have a high yield savings account, have savings, and have a checking. It's simple. I'll go ahead and kind of pull the veil up, show you guys with my personal self. I bank with E-Trade, which is owned by Morgan Stanley, but my high yield savings account is with my Amex because I love American Express because I travel. So I search around for rates, and every bank offers a different amount of interest rate. Now, it doesn't really make that much of a difference if one is 10 cents higher or whatever. But for me, I'm like, my credit card and my high yield savings account is with Amex because I can check it there. I get direct deposit if I'm doing something like for my parents or like with their company they own or work for somewhere else. I have it in my E-Trade. So it all really depends, but just simplify things. Don't have 10 different accounts. That's just a nightmare.
Do you also work with international accounts or and clients, or do you only work with US based individuals?
No, we've been consulting with a couple of international ones. I've spoken to some people personally separate from the stuff my dad and I have going on. There's obvious different changes and whatnot. But we'd be more than willing to talk to people, because some of the basics of that stuff, like high yield savings account, retirement, it's the same. When you get into the nuts and bolts, it can be a little bit different with a place like Sweden has a super high tax rate, but also a place like the US, it kind of depends. So it's I wouldn't want to give inaccurate information if one person is in Alabama and the next person is in Dubai or something like that, So
got you. And then how would you recommend and where would you recommend keeping your debt related budget? Would you recommend putting in HYSA or somewhere different?
So let's say that, okay, I'll give kind of two scenarios. Let's say that I made that example where it's okay, maybe you, I hate this is such a bad example. It's a good example of the bad thing I'm saying, but maybe you lost a parent and they had something and you inherited it, or you got rear-ended and you got settlement or whatever it is, or you got a check and you're okay, I know I may not owe this for a while. Then you could be let it just collect interest. So let the bank pay me for putting in a high yield savings account. Now, if you're okay, cool, I have this money and student loan repayments are coming up, or I just want to start paying off my credit card, I would just put that money into an account and just pay and connect the account with your debt. And then just start paying it out of there. So something to consider about the high yield savings account, it's not too good to be true, but you can't necessarily treat it the same way as a regular checking account, because I think you can only withdraw from it 6 times a month, whereas a regular one you can withdraw 100 times in a day if you wanted to. So it's just something else to consider.
Sweet. All right, we ended right at 2. I try to get as many questions in as possible.
Dope.
Sweet. Was this useful to everybody from all of Taylor's advice? Awesome. There were some lingering questions for some speakers, including Taylor in the chat, that seemed relatively specific. So feel free to hit him up via email.
Thanks everyone for listening. Thank you. Super honored to be here. So thank you guys.
All right, y'all. Well, that about concludes our event. Did everyone enjoy it? Incredible. All right. Does anybody have any last minute questions for any of our speakers? We have about 5 minutes left. All right, what I would love to do is invite Tayler, Terrell, Amanda, Osmond to come off and enter onto camera and just mention any last minute words and closing remarks for everybody.
Totally.
Sweet. Tayler, you want to go first? Oh, can't hear you anymore.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, can you hear me? All right, I'll keep this simple. Relax. We are all learning. To be a student of life is the greatest form of education. Understanding this stuff takes time. The fact that you're here is a perfect step in the right direction. And play along. That's all I'm saying. Play along.
Great. Thank you, Tayler. Terrell, what you got for us?
Oh man. Great talk, by the way, Tayler, man. That was awesome.
Thanks, bro.
Love it. Honestly, be you, stay true to yourself. Always believe in whatever it is that you are trying to accomplish. A goal is only set by you, not everybody else around you. And when you go to follow it, follow through with it. Because if you don't, you'll only regret it. And I've been in those situations before where I wanted to do something and I pushed it off for a long time. And then when I try to start it again, I'm just like, okay, I don't even want to do it anymore. So I say, if you have something that you really want to shoot for, actually shoot for it, because you never know what can happen. And that's what happened with me with that book. I mean, I have a talk with somebody that's really big on Monday, which is crazy because of it. And you all know who this person is, which is cool. But yeah, I'm not gonna give a name, but yeah, you never know what can happen.
Is their name Roshana from Where the Black Designers?
No, it's a comedian that's very well known. He's Black.
Let's go.
And he has a business. That's all I'll say.
Interesting. Where will we be able to see that chat? Instagram?
For me?
Yes.
Well, no, I'm gonna. That's it's a private one, so it's about my book. So it's it has to do with like screenplay rights and stuff. So yeah, I'll you'll hear more.
Incredible. Amanda, what last minute words do you have for us?
Oh, I don't even know if I can add up to anything, but just be true to yourself, like everyone's saying, and you have to say a lot of yes before learning to say no, and it's really important. Yeah, and just have fun in the process. Like it can get really tough sometimes, but you just have fun.
Incredible. Thank you. Osmond.
Experiment and have fun. Like I think the reason why we chose to be creative is to have fun. So experiment, have fun. Yeah. Pretty soon I'm gonna be in the States, so I think my whole next 2 years has to be like experimenting and then trying out new things, new forms, making by hand and stuff like that. So yeah.
Incredible. All right. Well, I want to give a special shout out to Roshana, to Mitzi, to Chloe, to Andrew, part of the Where the Black Designers and ustwo team. So please give it up to them and give it up for everybody who spoke today. My name is Ritesh. I've been happy to moderate this. This is one of my favorite things ever. Like, gives me life to do this types of things. Quick shout outs. Follow Where the Black Designers and ustwo on Instagram. Same with Twitter. Where the Black Designers got gifts for y'all on Instagram. So just go to the gifts, little stickers feature, and then type in WATBD on stories to use our gifts, and have a great time, y'all.